In 1861, Abraham Lincoln was elected President of the United States. South Carolina was the first state to succeed. After South Carolina, 6 more states succeeded, then 4 more states. These 11 states became the Confederate States of America. The Confederate States created a Confederate Constitution, which was a document similar to the United States Constitution. Jefferson Davis was elected President of the Confederate States. The Confederates attacked Fort Sumter, and 4 more states had joined the Confederacy. Virginia succeeds from the Union, followed by Arkansas, Tennessee, and North Carolina. Virginia becomes the capital state of the Confederacy. West Virginia is formed with the west side of Virginia that did not want to succeed with the rest of the state. 4 slave states did not succeed from the Union. In 1861, the first Battle of Bull Run took place. The Confederates won the battle. About 5,000 people died, and 3,000 of them were Union soldiers. Lincoln issued the Proclamation Blockade to stop trade in the South, so their supplies were limited. In July, President Lincoln replaced General McDowell with General George B. McClellan. On October 21st, 1861,
1862 started out with President Lincoln issuing a war order authorizing the Union to launch a unified action against the South in late January. General McClellan ignored this order, and as a result of his disobedience, President Lincoln issued an order seizing command of the Army of Virginia from him and putting him in command of the Army of Potomac with an order to attack Richmond. This marked the beginning of the Peninsular Campaign. In early April, the Confederacy attacked Union forces under the command of Ulysses S. Grant at Shiloh, Texas. By the end of the day, most of the forces were defeated, but during the night, Union reinforcements came, and by the next morning, the Confederacy had retreated. 13,000 out of 63,000 Union soldiers died, and 11,000 out of 40,000 Confederate soldiers died. During the time period of June 26th to July 2nd, several battles were fought. These battles include the Battle of Mechanicsville, Gaines Mill, Savage's Station, Fraser's Farm, and Malvern Hill. On July 2nd, Confederate forces withdrew to Richmond, ending the Peninsular Campaign. In early September, General McClellan defeated Confederate General Lee at South Mountain and Crampton's Gap. However, McClellan did not move quickly enough to save Harper's Ferry, which fell to Confederate General Jackson on September 15th. On September 17th, General Lee's forces were caught by General McClellan near Sharpsburg, Maryland. The battle that followed is known as the bloodiest day of the war, with 2,108 Union deaths, 9,549 Union soldiers wounded, 2,700 Confederate deaths, and 9,029 Confederate soldiers wounded. This battle had no clear winner, but General Lee withdrew to Virginia, so General McClellan was considered the victor. This battle convinced the British and the French to reserve action and gave President Lincoln the opportunity to announce his preliminary Emancipation Proclamation, which freed all slaves in the areas against the Union, effective January 1st, 1863.
The year 1863 was a really important year for the North in the Civil War. In January of that year, the Emancipation Proclamation was passed. This was great news for the North. This meant that all slaves in rebellion still were free in the opinion of the federal government. As far as battles went this year, there were 3 main battles fought. The first one was fought in May. It was the Battle of Chancellorsville. General Lee split up his army, surprising the Union in 3 places. This ended in a South victory. The second was the Battle of Chickamauga. The 2 sides met at the Tennessee and Georgia border. The South ended up winning this one as well. The third and final battle fought this year was the Battle of Chattanooga. It was a 2-day-long battle ending in a Union victory.
The year 1864 was a rough year for both sides. Friends and family were lost to both the Yankees and the Southerners. The Union was struggling. With losses in the Battle of Chickamauga in September of 1863 and the Battle of Cold Harbor in June of the same year, things were looking dim. Grant, however, did not give up, and with much hope and vigor he continued his campaign for victory against Lee and his forces. When they next met, it was at Petersburg, a town in Virginia, in the early days of April. As a result of the siege of Petersburg, Lee surrendered his remaining forces at the Appomattox courthouse. Then, in November of the same year, President Abraham Lincoln was re-elected. As things had been looking dreary for the North, many seemed doubtful of the Union's victory, and therefore were doubtful that Lincoln would make wise decisions. It was Sherman's victory in the Battle of Atlanta in late September and early November, however, that boosted Lincoln's popularity. In the election of 1864, Lincoln ran against General George McClellan, his former top general in the Union Army. Although McClellan was the peace candidate, he did not believe in the platform of his party. The National Union Party, made up of Republicans loyal to Lincoln and many war Democrats, was formed to accommodate the remaining war Democrats. However, as the war progressed, the opinions of the Republican Party split, which caused tension. Several states allowed citizens serving as soldiers on the field to cast votes in the election, a first in U.S. history. The soldiers serving in the Union Army gave Lincoln over 70% of their vote. The election ended with another victory for the Union. Lincoln had been re-elected as the President of the United States.
"1865 was a very big year for the Civil War. Things were coming to an end, and the heat was only rising. In January, after Admiral David D. Porter's squadron of warships had subjected Fort Fisher to a terrific bombardment, General Alfred H. Terry's troops took it by storm on January 15th. In Wilmington, North Carolina, the last resort of the blockade runners was sealed off. Timothy H. O'Sullivan promptly recorded the strength of the works and the effects of the bombardment. Transportation problems and successful blockades caused severe shortages of food and supplies in the South. Starving soldiers began to desert Lee's forces. And although President Jefferson Davis approved the arming of slaves as a means of augmenting in the shrinking army, the measure was never put into effect. In February, Union General Sherman moved from Georgia through South Carolina, destroying almost everything in his path. Confederate President Jefferson Davis agreed to send delegates to a peace conference with President Lincoln and Secretary of State William Seward, but insisted on Lincoln's recognition of the South's independence as a prerequisite. Lincoln refused, and the Confederate never occurred. Alexander Gardner and probably other photographers made a splendid record of the Confederate capital, desolate after the evacuation on April 2nd and the fire which raged along the waterfront but fortunately had stopped short of the Thomas Jefferson Capitol. The Lincoln administration was determined to make the capital safe from attack by ringing the city with a chain of forts manned by substantial garrisons of artillerists and other groups. On April 14th, as President Lincoln was watching a performance of Our American Cousin at Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C., he was shot by John Wilkes Booth, an actor from Maryland obsessed with avenging the Confederates' defeat. Lincoln died the next morning, and Booth escaped to Virginia. In May, remaining Confederate troops were defeated between the end of April and the end of May. Jefferson Davis was captured in Georgia on May 10th. The Army of the Potomac prayed on May 23rd, and the Army of Georgia on May 24th. Unfortunately, most of the photographs, thought to have been taken by Bradley himself, fail to distinguish either the unit or the day. In November, the notorious superintendent of the Confederate prison at Andersonville, Georgia, was tried by a military commission president over the General Law Wallace from August 23rd to October 24th, 1865, and was hanged in the yard of the old Capitol prison on November 10th.